Imagine building something so massive that scientists say it slightly changed the rotation of our planet, not a rocket, not an asteroid, not a nuclear explosion, a dam built by humans standing across China's Yangtze River, holding back nearly 40 billion cubic meters of water, enough to fill millions of Olympic swimming pools. When NASA scientists discussed its effect on Earth's mass distribution, the internet exploded, headlines appeared everywhere. China built a dam that slowed the Earth. But was it really possible? Can a single structure built by humans change an entire planet, or was the truth far more complicated? To answer that question, we first have to understand why China was willing to spend billions of dollars on one river, because this story isn't just about a dam, it's about floods, power, politics, engineering, and one of the biggest human migrations in modern history for thousands of years. The Yangtze River has been both China's greatest blessing and its greatest nightmare. It helped build civilizations, fed millions of people, created some of the world's richest farmland, but every few decades, the river turned deadly. Entire cities disappeared underwater, millions lost their homes, hundreds of thousands lost their lives. The floods of 1931 are still remembered as one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. China needed a permanent solution, not another wall, not another levee, something much bigger, much stronger, and much more ambitious. The answer was unlike anything the world had ever seen: a dam over 2.3 kilometers long, standing more than 180 meters high, a project so enormous that many engineers called it impossible. But here's the twist: building the dam was actually the easy part. What came next changed millions of lives forever, and that's where the real story begins. For decades, the idea stayed on paper, not because engineers didn't know how to build it, but because a project was simply too big, too expensive, and too controversial. Some believed it would save China, others warned it could become the country's greatest mistake. Then, in 1992, everything changed. China approved the Three Gorges Dam. Construction would officially begin. The budget more than $30 billion at the time. It became one of the most expensive engineering projects ever attempted, but money wasn't the biggest sacrifice. People were to build the reservoir. Entire towns had to disappear. Villages, schools, hospitals, factories, everything would soon be underwater. More than 1.3 million people were relocated. Imagine being told that the home where your family had lived for generations would no longer exist, not because of war, not because of nature, but because a dam about to rise. Some accepted it, others never wanted to leave. Even today, it remains one of the largest resettlement programs in modern history. Then, the construction began. Day and night, thousands of workers, hundreds of cranes, millions of tons of concrete. The numbers were almost unbelievable: more than 27 million cubic meters of concrete, over 460,000 tons of steel, enough steel to build dozens of Eiffel Towers. Slowly, the river started changing. Water rose higher, cities disappeared, ancient temples were moved, historic sites were lost forever. China wasn't just building a dam, it was reshaping an entire landscape. But then came the biggest challenge: no one could control nature itself. By 2006, the main wall was complete, standing 185 meters tall, stretching more than 2.3 kilometers across the Yangtze River. But this wasn't just a wall of concrete. It was a giant power station. Hidden inside the dam were 32 massive turbines, each one bigger than a house. Together, they could generate more than 22,500 megawatts of electricity, enough to power millions of homes every single day. Almost overnight, the Three Gorges Dam became the largest hydroelectric power station in the world. China celebrated. Supporters called it a historic victory: cleaner electricity, better flood control, improved shipping. Everything seemed perfect, but then the criticism began. Environmental experts raised serious concerns: the rising water submerged forests, wildlife habitats disappeared, some rare species were pushed closer to extinction, landslides became more frequent around parts of the reservoir. Scientists continued studying whether changing the water level could affect the surrounding landscape. Supporters argued the benefits outweighed the risks, critics believed. The environmental cost was simply too high. Even today, the debate continues. Then a headline appeared that shocked the internet. China's dam slowed the earth. It sounded impossible, but where did this claim come from? The answer is surprisingly interesting. When a huge amount of water is stored behind a dam, its mass is moved to a slightly different position on Earth. That tiny shift changes the way our planet's mass is distributed, and whenever mass moves, Earth's rotation can change by an incredibly small amount. Scientists explained that the effect is measurable, but tiny, so tiny that no human could ever notice it. The length of a day changes by only a few microseconds. That's millionths of a second. In other words, the headline was based on a real scientific effect, but the impact on everyday life is essentially zero. Still, it proves something remarkable. Human engineering has become so massive that scientists can measure its influence on the entire planet, and that's an incredible thought. But perhaps the dam's greatest achievement wasn't electricity, it wasn't the world record, and it wasn't the NASA headline. It was something far more important: stopping the floods that had devastated China for centuries. Or did it so? Was it worth it? After decades of planning, billions of dollars in investment, and years of construction, did the Three Gorges Dam actually achieve its purpose? The answer is both yes and no. On one hand, the project became one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Today, the dam generates enough clean electricity to power millions of homes across China every year. It replaces a huge amount of coal-fired electricity, reducing air pollution and cutting millions of tons of carbon emissions. It also transformed transportation. Before the dam, large cargo ships struggled to travel deep into central China. Today, thanks to its massive ship locks and ship lift, much larger vessels can move through the Yangtze River, making trade faster, cheaper, and more efficient for China's economy. That was a game changer. But every engineering miracle comes with a price. More than 1.3 million people were relocated from their homes. Entire towns disappeared beneath the rising water. Ancient temples, historic villages, and priceless archaeological sites were lost forever. Some sacrifices can never be measured in money. Environmental concerns also remain. Scientists continue studying the long-term effects on wildlife, water quality, sediment flow, and the surrounding landscape. Even today, the debate continues. Was the project worth its environmental cost, or was it simply too big to avoid consequences? Then, let's return to the question that brought us here. Did the Three Gorges Dam really slow the Earth's rotation? The answer is yes, but only by an incredibly tiny amount. According to scientists, moving such an enormous volume of water slightly changes the Earth's distribution of mass. That tiny shift makes our planet rotate just a little differently, increasing the length of a day by only a few microseconds. That's millionths of a second, so small that no human could ever notice it. But scientifically, it is real, and perhaps that's the most incredible part of this story. Human engineering has become so powerful that its effects can actually be measured. On the planet itself, the Three Gorges Dam is more than concrete, more than steel, and more than electricity. It is a symbol of human ambition, a project that changed a river, changed a nation, and in the smallest measurable way, changed our planet. Whether you see it as a triumph of engineering or a warning about the cost of megaprojects, one thing is certain: the Three Gorges Dam will remain one of the most extraordinary engineering achievements ever built by mankind. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to RailForge, and join us as we explore the world's greatest engineering marvels, one incredible story at a time. I'll see you in the next one.